Welcome to today's Business Spotlight. Today, our guest is Noel Shannon from Shannon Energy. Noel, you're very welcome.
Thanks, Tom. Good to see you again.
Fantastic. So tell our listeners here, what does Shannon Energy do and how long have you been doing it?
Hey, Tom, I was in the IT business for most of my life, as you probably know. And about 10 years ago, myself and my brother had an opportunity to work with a solar energy project in South Africa. And way back then, this was really popular in countries with high yield, high sunshine, and solar panels were a great way of producing cheap energy. We started 10 years ago on those projects. Then we moved, would you believe, to Iran, where they've got wonderful yield as well, but a very difficult political climate. And thanks to Donald Trump, we had to leave Iran about 7 or 8 years ago. And
Thank you for that.
Yeah, exactly. We did some projects in Europe, in Hungary in particular, and we teamed up with a Danish company called Obton. And then they wanted to come to Ireland. By this stage, the price of the solar panels is starting to fall and making countries like Ireland, where the yield is lower, but still making it economical to build solar projects in Ireland. So we started a joint venture with them 10 years ago, and we set up a joint venture between Shannon Energy and with Obton. And we have started to build utility scale solar projects. By that, I mean, not rooftop, not household rooftop.
Yeah, not residential.
No, not residential.
Yeah.
This is not even commercial at this stage. It's utility scale, where it's all ground mounted, and it's acres and acres and acres of solar panels. So we lease we lease farms from landowners.
Right.
And we apply for planning permission to put lots and lots of these panels on the ground. And then we apply to connect them up to the grid and produce green energy. So it's really part of the climate change agenda to help Ireland meet its carbon neutral targets by 2030. So we're part of that process.
Which everybody needs to be very aware of now, having a carbon footprint. So tell me, you produce the energy with the solar panels, you put the investment into it, and then you sell the energy back to the grid.
Correct. We use our equity plus the equity from our partners in Denmark, Obton, and we fund the development of these projects up until a stage where they are worthy of debt finance. In other words, where the banks deem them to be fit for investment. So and that's when they are ready to build. So we define ready to build as when we have secured the land, when we've got planning permission, and when we've got a connection to the grid being the national network. And we then look for a route to market, which is basically getting a tariff from the government to export that energy onto the grid. Now, the grid is kind of the choke point in a lot of our strategy, because the grid in Ireland was never designed to have multiple generation points all around the place. And now with renewable energy, we're going to have solar and wind producing energy, generating energy from all sorts of places in Ireland and putting it onto the grid. And this creates a huge challenge for Air Grid and for ESB networks, because the grid is not fit for purpose. It hasn't been upgraded sufficiently to take all this additional generation, and that's why it's taken so long, because they have to upgrade it.
So from the beginning of a project, identifying a site till you've actually closed a deal and are producing energy, how long would that cycle take?
So unfortunately, you have to do everything serially. So when we sign up a farmer, we'd sign up a farmer for maybe a 40-year lease, and we'd have an option period before we execute that lease. And during that option period, we go in for planning permission. The planning permission can take 2 years. It really can, and you can get objections because you apply to the council, and the council may grant you planning permission, but you might have objections at the council level, and the neighbours may object, and there's a big amount of not in my backyard or you know, and a farmer's neighbor might be having a row with him for some other reason. He just wants to object. And then there are these eco warriors who just make it their business to go out and object to anything.
Anything. Yeah.
And in fact, there are some people who make it their business to lodge objections, as you've seen on some of RTE Investigates, where
Yes.
we have that in the renewable energy business as well, where people lodge an objection in the hope that we would pay them to take it away. So we have to deal with all those issues in the planning process. And we have to wait until we have full planning permission for a solar farm, like this one behind me, a very big one, about 500 acres.
Wow.
And that's in, we've got planning permission for that. And we then have to apply for grid to connect to the grid. You can't apply for the grid connection until you have planning permission. And then when we get the grid connection, then we have to pay a deposit to EirGrid to secure that grid connection. And then we have to go and get a route to market, somebody to buy the power. So that is the main stages. And once we have that, it's ready to build.
So it's a very simple business, really.
Well, actually, Tom, you wouldn't believe it, but actually building these is the simplest part. It's like Lego. I mean, building a solar project is much easier than building a hotel or building anything.
It's just time.
It's time is our enemy, but actually putting the panels onto a structure that you drill holes in the ground and build the substructure and then put the panels on and connect them to the grid. It's not that complex. Now, I'm no engineer, but our engineers tell us that that's the easy bit.
So would you have a lot of competitors in this space, Noel, or how would you differentiate yourself from your competitors?
Sure. The competitors are other developers like ourselves, from international developers like ourselves. Well, also, we have the state companies, Port Nimona, ESB themselves. They are in the renewable energy business. So they're in the energy business, in fact. Port Nimona have significant wind assets, and they've also got a lot of solar. ESB, similarly, they do offshore, onshore, wind, solar, biomass, everything, hydrogen plants. We focus just on solar. We would have competition from international firms who are focused just on solar. What's our advantage? Early mover is the main advantage you look for in securing land, developing relationships with the landowners around Ireland, identifying those sites that will be more suitable for solar, because not every site is suitable, not every farm is suitable. You know, we look at the grid network. It's like the road network. If you're far away from it, it costs much more to get to it. So if you're building a hotel and it's far away from a road network, you're going to get less traffic or less business than if your hotel is right beside a busy roundabout. So we want, if you think of a roundabout like being a substation, we want to be as close to a substation as possible, or we want to be as close to a line as possible where we can build that connection. It costs a huge amount of money to run cables along the road or along underground or overground to get to the grid. So there's grid desert out there, and then there's places that are too busy. And if your place is too busy, then you're not going to be allowed to export as much as you would like onto that grid, because there's too many people trying to get. The sun produces power like a curve every day, you know, and doesn't produce anything, as you know, at nighttime.
At nighttime,
So and the demand for power is the inverse. It's kind of like that. So we produce the most power when we need it least, which is in the middle of the day. So we have to be careful that the grid will take it, and that you know, we can in fact export it. And if we produce too much power in one area, you're likely to be constrained and therefore make less money, because you get paid per kilowatt hour that you produce.
But you don't want to make less money, that's for certain.
No, that's
so tell us, Noel, you've been involved in a number of businesses. So looking back, what's the biggest learning in, say, in the last 10-year period that you've got from running a company?
Yeah, I was thinking about that, and the biggest thing I've learned, I suppose, is it's really around about particularly working with a partner, it's really around about where does your responsibility begin and end, and where does your control begin and end? And there has to be a relationship between responsibility and control. What I mean by that is if you take on something and you can't control the levers that produce the outcome, then you're going to be damned if it doesn't work out.
Yeah.
I've often used the phrase, "There's no good turn ever goes unpunished," which by that I mean if you do something that you're not in control of,
not managing, yeah,
and it doesn't work out, you'll be blamed. So you've got to really have a clear definition of in any partnership, because this is a partnership. And you've got to be very clear on what are we responsible for and what do we control. And if there's a mismatch between that, then you're gonna be in trouble.
So having a clear destination is vital to both parties.
Yes, and clear roles and clear responsibilities. The other big thing I probably learned is that spend an awful lot more time on selecting your staff, your employees. It's just, wow, if you make a mistake there, like we are a smallish team, like we're 10 people, but each person is key to the success of the group. And then we interact a lot with our Danish friends. So if we make a mistake with having any one of those people, the wrong person, and we have made mistakes, it takes so much time to recover.
Yes.
And now we have a great team right now, but it has taken us years to get to that. And if you make a mistake and you're 2 years in with the wrong person, like to roll back and to recover from that is dramatic.
So you've got a big learning in the recruitment side in the last by trial and error. So looking at that now, what qualities would you now say are top of the list that you look for when you're employing people?
Yeah, I suppose I would look to, well, I took a note of that here earlier on. Where am I? Yeah.
Don't worry, we can edit this now, so there's
no
problem.
Okay, I have it here. So, Tom, in answer to the question, what qualities do you look for in your employees? I would predominantly intelligence and trustworthiness would be my two keys, plus good communication skills.
Yeah.
And a positive and enthusiastic personality. Those are the five that I would look for in any new person. But intelligence and trustworthiness are, to me, the two most important. And trustworthiness goes with integrity and goes with all of those things. And you can, if you get that wrong, you're going to regret it.
Yeah, it can be a cost. So slow, fire fast.
I was supposed to answer your question. I'd spend more time on that and getting the right person. And it doesn't have to be a mirror of yourself. It has to be somebody who adds to the business and probably has different skills.
But as great as you are, I suppose 10 Noel Shannons wouldn't add up to much. I don't too much with it. Noel, fantastic talking to you there. One last question I want to ask you is here: what advice would you give to budding entrepreneurs who might be listening to this, who might be thinking of starting a business? What advice would you give to them when they're starting a business? And I suppose add on to that, what advice would you give to an 18-year-old you?
Yeah. So, I think the biggest thing, Tom, is to learn how to delegate. And it's often a misconception in business that you have to be good at a micro level, micromanaging, and some people make that mistake. And certainly all entrepreneurs, when they start a business, they'd probably have to do everything themselves. So they have to be, if it's a one-man or two-man show, you have to do everything. You have to be good at everything, otherwise you won't grow. But as you grow, I mean, that can become a deterrent to growth, because it fosters a philosophy of non-delegation if you do everything yourself. And you've got to learn to delegate. And you've got to, it comes back to the talent pool as well, and the people you employ. you've got to pick people that add to your skill set, not that reflect your skill set. And then you've got to learn how to delegate to them and how to trust that when you delegate something to them, it will be done. And that comes back to how the culture you have in your organization. You have to foster a culture of openness and transparency, which builds trust and allows. And then, but you have to be clear on what is your strategy, what's your overall goal, and you have to, I suppose, like being captain of a team, you have to have each person being aware of what their role is in the team, but they also have to be aware of what role the other person plays, so that they can work together as a team and can achieve the goals. So you have to spend a lot of time on that, I think, and you have to get the right people, get them working together the right way, and then delegate and trust them. Trust them. You often hear Leo Cullen saying, or Gordon Darcy talking about heads up rugby.
Yeah.
Let them play. Let them, don't always say, well, it has to be this way. Oh, I wouldn't have done it that way. Yeah. You have to let them do it their way when you have set the common goal. So I remember years ago, I used to work with a guy who referred to the 3 Ds. This comes back to your social life and all the rest, but he had the 3 Ds. He said, decide, delegate, and disappear.
I love that. I use that myself, I have to say. I think it's great. Yeah, that's a great one. Noel, Shannon Energy, fantastic to talk to you. Noel, if somebody wants to contact you, they might want to even talk to you about, hey, I've got a bit of land and that sort of stuff. Maybe can I talk to you about this?
I just want to add, Tom,
yeah,
because of the time delays it takes to get onto the grid, there's a new initiative in Ireland now to expand what they call the private wire or behind the meter access for solar projects. So we've opened a new division, a commercial and industrial division, where we are building solar projects specifically for commercial or industrial customers who have enough roof space or have enough yard space or a field beside them.
And what sort of space would that be typically? From what? Well, from what sort of space would you require?
Well, I mean, a megawatt takes about 3 acres. So we would build anything from a fifth of that to maybe a half an acre.
So from a half an acre upwards. You're happy to talk to
people. We're interested in providing a solution for solar on a half an acre upwards on either a rooftop or a car park or a field next door.
Yeah, like that.
That's much quicker. We can deliver that in months rather than years, because it's behind the meter and you don't have to go for a grid connection. You probably don't have to go for planning, and therefore it can be done quicker. So that's why we started this new division. And it's we predict there's a lot of roof space out there on commercial and industrial premises that we want to put renewable energy on.
That sounds like fantastic.
We pay for it. We pay for it up front, and then you just you pay for it back over 10 years or whatever by paying for the kilowatt hours which are produced for free. So you pay for them.
So win-win for everybody.
Yeah, we used to sell photocopiers like this years ago.
How the world has changed.
Exactly.
No, Shannon Energy, ShannonEnergy.com, folks. If you heard what Noel said, if you have any bit of land or space somewhere, you want to have a chat with him, give Noel a call or get onto him through his website at ShannonEnergy.com. Noel, thank you so much for participating today. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Tom. Appreciate it.